I wanted to be a witness to history. So there were two things that were really the driving forces early on in my career. One is, so I love to travel, and that's, I'm like, okay, so there's a job where people will pay you to travel and then tell the stories about the places you've been and the things you've seen. Yeah. And then from a very young age, I was interested in history and geography. Right. And so I remember, I don't know how graphic we can get, but like I would spend a long time sitting on the toilet reading the atlas.
Yo, welcome to another episode of In a Minute with Evan Lovett, coming to you live from the IM studios in the heart of Los Angeles. And I am here with Matt Gutman, the chief national correspondent for ABC News, award-winning reporter with a lot of guts and a lot of heart and hustle, and just a great, excellent guest here. And perhaps most importantly, at least for these purposes, the host of the podcast Devil in the Desert. And dare I say, the #1 podcast over the summer, because this is a true crime podcast that captivated me, my family, my colleagues, everybody throughout the country. And it's a story that spans Los Angeles, even though it begins south of LA in Newport and continues north of Los Angeles out in the Mojave Desert. But in between, there's a lot of Los Angeles, and Matt is here in Los Angeles to talk about the podcast and his career, and he is a really, really fascinating guy. So I can't wait to get into this. Matt, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you.
It's so good to be here. Oh, what happened to the what is up? I feel like I was like, I'm shortchanged here. There's no official what is up.
I'll be honest with you. It's funny. I have a sort of duality within the podcast. I try not to use the hooks as much. All right. So, but we will give it. What is up, Matt Gutman? Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And also, what is up to our sponsor, Arto Brick. Arto Brick, thank you so much for supporting the show. They are a third-generation legacy business running out of Gardena, a factory manufacturer of tiles and bricks at LA's important landmarks, Alvera Street, USC, Mariachi Plaza, Viviana, and so many more. Right here in the heart of Los Angeles. And Armin, the CEO, the president, really appreciate you for keeping jobs in Los Angeles and manufacturing in Los Angeles. So very important. Arto Brick, interior decorators, architects, anybody redesigning their house, hook them up with Arto Brick. So, all right, Matt, thank you for being here. I'll be honest with you. I listened to Devil in the Desert twice, all the way through. 6. Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember reading about it in the LA Times. As you guys know, I'm a big newspaper guy, big LA Times guy. I criticize, but I love the LA Times. And I also like the Daily News' reporting. But LA Times did some good coverage on this story that I remembered, as a big story, but didn't really dive into it. And Matt made it excellent podcast on behalf of ABC. 6 episodes where he tells the story. Before we really dive in, give the overall arc of the story.
So I just want to say something that's so interesting how this started.
Yeah.
Like, I found out about the story at about the same time you did. But maybe even sooner. I was doing another murder story.
Yeah.
Well, this is not a murder, but I was doing another true crime story about Oscar Pistorius. Remember him, the Blade Runner?
Oh, yes.
Remember? So
South Africa?
I basically lived in South Africa for parts of 2013 and 14 covering this story.
Right.
And we came back, and this was different times for TV and documentaries. And 2020, I was going to do the whole piece for 2020, built a replica, a mock-up of Oscar Pistorius' house at the Times Square studios in New York.
Okay.
And I did a walkthrough with the swashbuckling district attorney from Orange County named Matt Murphy.
Okay.
So have anybody heard of Matt Murphy? He's like a legend, right? This guy has never lost a trial case. 99 victories, I think, Matt, 99 in the big ones,
right.
For murder. And so he starts telling, we're doing Oscar Pistorius, and like on the sidelines as we're waiting between takes, he's telling me about this story of this guy who committed the most heinous crime short of murdering someone.
Right.
And basically the arc of the story is that there is a man named Jose Nayeri.
Yeah.
Jose Nayeri is an immigrant from Iran, arrives when he was 12 or 13, lives in Fresno, kind of a quiet, taciturn kid. Pretty quickly, he joins the wrestling team, and he's good.
Right.
And if you see this guy, I mean, he's jacked. He's like rippling with muscles. He's got like those natural traps that you don't have unless you're born with that. I think he came out of the womb kind of like that.
You're like shoulder shrugs, right? But it's not going to get like that. Yeah.
He was a knuckle dragger at 3 years old, right? Like strong kid. And one of the things that was so interesting from his wrestling coach that we learned is that he never, ever lost his cool on the wrestling mat.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who seemed to have, really, we say this a lot, but the whole world in front of him. He was a good athlete. He was a pretty decent student. He joins the Marines out of high school. His parents are lawyers. His mom's a lawyer. His dad's a doctor. But he joins the Marines. It's during the war on terror in the early 2000s. And pretty quickly he washes out. But he's actually brought on to do Marine Recon, which is the elite of the Marines. Right. He has a surfing accident, gets a TBI.
What's a TBI?
A traumatic brain injury, and something happens. He goes off to Northern California, and he starts dabbling in weed, and he ends up in a car accident.
And this is when, by the way, the weed industry is sort of developing in its nascent phases, where if you wanted marijuana, you had to get a medical license. So it's sort of like medical industry, if you will, but we all know how marijuana is in California. Continue.
Right.
Yeah.
So fast forward, this guy's got a history, basically ends up killing his best friend in a drunk driving accident, flees the country to Iran. He ends up coming back, faces the piper, and is given a suspended sentence.
Right.
And everybody vouches for him. His wrestling coach, his girlfriends, all these people come in, you're like, this is a good guy. You got to trust him. This was an honest mistake.
Right.
He's given a real major second chance. Goes to Southern California. He's in Orange County, and this is where the weed business is blowing up. And people forget, you still can't bank the money you make from marijuana. So all these dispensaries we see, this is a cash-only business. It's not recognized by the federal government.
Right.
So people are walking around with bags of cash.
And banks, right? I think that's important to say, right? Not recognized by the federal government, but banks couldn't deposit that money if they knew your business, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, you could physically deposit the cash in a safety deposit box, but you can't, write a check to yourself for $700,000 of cash, and then that would be money laundering.
Right.
So people are walking around with a lot of money, and he ends up suspecting that this one pretty big dispensary, multiple dispensary owner in Orange County has stashed a whole bunch of money in a gold mine in the Mojave Desert.
Right.
And so he and his buddies, they stake out this guy, and he's doing it for months and months. And this is this is 2010.
And this is a real stakeout, by the way, not a amateur operation, like tags and cameras and all kinds of
GPS trackers. This stuff wasn't really happening. They didn't have the stuff we have now.
But the guy was named Michael. I could say that, right?
The mark was named Michael.
Right.
We can say that. So Michael was at home with another woman who was staying there at the time, just basically a random person. She was dating the other roommate. Suddenly in the middle of the night, she feels a gun.
Hold on. I think it's important to say the woman who was staying at the home had just moved in 2 days prior.
2 days prior.
2 days prior, this woman, Mary Barnes.
Dude, this guy really did listen.
Yeah, so Mary Barnes.
Encyclopedia, he knows it better than I do.
If I'm not mistaken, she moved from Florida, right, to this home in Newport on a Saturday night. And then she, on Monday morning, right, after midnight, she wakes up with a cold metal something on the back of her neck, right?
I'm looking to see if there's a script.
No, I got the notes on your bio right here, which we still haven't got into because this is important as well. But go on.
It's really impressive. Yeah. It's actually a little intimidating. So she wakes up with this cold steel pressed against the back of her head.
You've lived in a new house for 2 days.
Do you remember what the person said to her?
Yeah, this is not about you. This was not about her. So, but that said, you have a gun to the back of your head, so it is about you. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
She's basically bound, blindfolded, and then she hears something thumping down the stairs. And that's Michael after being beaten, being dragged down. That's his head hitting each step. And they're bundled into this van and then taken for a long drive. Right. And during the drive, Michael is tortured mercilessly. They're tasing him, they're hitting him with hoses, their fists, and the whole time she just hears the thuds of fist against flesh and clothes and the thumping.
And they're directly adjacent in the back of this vehicle, right? But they're not doing these things to her, right? She's just, okay, keep going.
She's not physically harmed, but she hears all of this torture happening. And the whole time, these guys who are masked are using this like terrible fake accent, fake
Which
Spanish accent.
She thinks is a fake accent.
She thinks is fake, but it's like, our patron wants to know, like it's really embarrassing. And she can tell that that something is off with these guys. Right. They keep asking about, where's the $1 million, Michael? Specifically,
and this is important, they think they know that it's specifically $1 million. You buried $1 million somewhere.
In a gold mine, they think, in the Mojave, take us to it. We're not sure where, take us to this place.
And the reason why, if I may sort of skip ahead, they had been tracking with the GPS trackers. This guy, Michael, had been going to the desert intermittently, but consistently to review some sort of property or something in the Mojave Desert. And these people who are tracking him are like, oh, he's going to like check on his money? Like
stashing the cash. He's building the pile.
I was like, why would he keep going back? But you're right. He's continuing to bury the money in the desert is their theory. Right. Exactly.
But the truth is that because this was a cash only business, people like Michael, the dispensary owners, this is so SoCal too. Yeah. They were like dying for ways to invest money. So people are like, why don't we invest in gold mines or gold or any place to be able to like pawn, like move their cash. Yeah. Anyway, so fast forward, they're beating the crap out of this guy. They take him out to the desert. He's like, I don't have the money. Yeah. And eventually he's like, I have $100,000 in my safety deposit box. I'll give you everything I have. They're like, no, we need the $1 million. Can I tell what happens?
Yeah, this is the kicker. Go on, yeah.
It's the clipper, for sure. So eventually they continue to torture the guy, tase him, beat him, burn him, and finally okay, they're out in the desert. They put them both on the ground, and Mary hears zip, and that's a zip tie. And it goes around... Yeah, it goes around Michael's penis. And they're like, we're going to cut your penis off if you don't tell us where the $1 million is. And he's like, at this point, pleading and begging and blubbering and just like, as any one of us would do.
Absolutely.
Like, I'll give you anything. I just
take whatever you want. Yeah.
And they cut his penis off. And we don't know what happened to it. Like still to this day, nobody knows and nobody has ever said. So he's howling, then they pour bleach all over.
Hold on, time out. They cut his penis off and they zip tie what remains of the stub or the stump.
No, they zip tie it first, I think, to be able to cut it off.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the zip tie basically was a what's it called? A tourniquet on his penis. It ended up saving his life.
So it didn't bleed out, right?
I don't think that was the intent. I think the intent was to zip tie it so they would be able to... we're getting really graphic here, but
No, this is important. And
they zip tied it to be able to have enough of the penis to be able to cut it off, okay?
This is possibly why this became the #1 podcast.
This is what prosecutors surmised that, there are a bunch of reasons. Anyway, it was horrific and brutal. And Mary, incredibly... So the leader, the ringleader... Yeah. Presses something cold into Mary's hand. Her hands are tied behind her back. She's in the desert there. And he's like, you feel that? That's a knife. If you can, I'm going to throw it. If you can find it, you can cut yourself free. But don't start until you count to 100 and we drive away. Right. And so she hears the van, going over the gravel. And eventually she's like, screw it, I'm just going to go. Yeah. Somehow finds the knife.
Which, by the way, in itself is incredible. Yeah. I was thinking about that point. But I guess when you lose certain senses, and I've heard this, your other senses become more sensitive. But I was like, dude, they didn't give her the knife. They teased her with the knife. And then she had to track it from the sound because she was blindfolded, zip tied.
She might have been able to she may have pushed up the blindfold enough to be able to see. It doesn't, whatever it was you want, if you're ever in the position that Michael's in, you want Mary Barnes by your side.
Right. Absolutely. I was thinking
she
was industrious.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So she cuts her feet free. She's still zip tied in her hands. She goes to him. He's a mess. And she starts trotting off into the desert to try to find help. She eventually flags. People are passing her by because she looks like a crazy lady in her yoga pants at 5 a.m. It's like pre-dawn. It's cold. It's winter. She's got zip ties, a knife in her hand, and people are just like, zoom, zoom. Yep. Nobody's
hands tied behind her back still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walking down the side of the freeway.
Finally, a
14.
Cop, yeah. A LA sheriff's deputy pulls over, and eventually she takes him to the site. Again, the fact that she was able to find it and lead him there. And then he immediately just starts documenting everything. Right. Instead of like tending to Michael, he does the right thing, which is documenting the scene, which was crucial. And then they need to go find these guys. And so we don't have to do the rest of it, but the next episodes are about tracking down the perpetrators. Just when you think that the story can't get any crazier, it does. Because this guy, Hussein Nayeri, ends up being, the modern day Harry Houdini, like the slipperiest person that you can ever imagine.
So we will get into more details on this, but again, Devil in the Desert, this is crazy because that's how it starts. And this is the first episode. And again, talk about compelling, talk about addictive. This is something that legit, I listened to all 6 episodes all the way through, and I listened again because like the details and the elements of the story, how everything comes together. And with Matt's storytelling is excellent. And please go check that out, by the way. But what I want to get into, let's back off the Devil in the Desert a little bit.
Okay.
I want to talk about Matt and his background because this is important. Again, chief national correspondent for ABC News. I'm sure you've seen him on 2020, Good Morning America, Nightline, World News Tonight. He's everywhere, okay? We're talking the Trayvon Martin, BP oil spill, the cave rescue in Thailand, author, Emmy Award winner. But your career started in Buenos Aires, right? In Argentina, and then kind of took off in Tel Aviv.
That's right.
Right? In Israel. So let's back up to your childhood. What got you into journalism and becoming this kind of reporter? Because we've had reporters and newscasters and broadcasters on the show previously, but you do something different and you're in it. And by the way, I got to say this too, because we were watching, I'll be honest, we were watching this in the production meeting before the show. Most recently, you probably saw him with the ICE protests in LA. This was the dude who got into it with the police officers. And by got into it, I mean, he remained cool as a cucumber, just composed, while the officers who granted are under a lot of pressure and feeling a lot of heat, were sort of accusing you of touching them and doing all these kinds of things, but being on live TV. So you probably saw that because that was a moment that went viral. But this is Matt in a nutshell, where somebody who remains calm and cool and collected, even in the heat of the moment. And that's important for the kind of reporting that you do. So
I feel like I only remain calm, collected in the heat of the moment. The rest of my life, I'm a mess. I'm just like anxious and nervous and prone to panic. But like if, there are guns and like, if things really get dangerous, that's why that's what, and I think that's what attracted to me to war zones. Like there was something about being on that knife's edge of life and death where people's lives are at stake and things are most important. It sort of just clarifies everything and it's not calming, but just shows you what's important. Right. And the rest of, life is all about noise and all the stuff that we get distracted with. But like when you're in those places, in those times where everything seems to matter more, that's what really appealed to me. And I think it's where, I felt that I always did my best work.
But from a young age.
From a young age.
Develop?
I don't know. I feel for young people now too, because of the advent of AI. Kids coming out of college right now don't know what to do. Entry-level jobs are being eliminated. They're scared. And that was not the case when I came out. When we came out of college, there was finance, there was all sorts of things. And I was like, do I go to law school? But I don't even like law. I just had no idea what I wanted to do.
So many opportunities that your major kind of
Right.
didn't even matter because you could just like pursue a career and like work from the bottom up. Yes, correct,
Exactly.
Correct.
Right. Now there is no bottom. You can't work from the bottom up because all the bottom jobs are gone.
Yeah, right. Automated, AI'd. But why did you get into journalism? What turned, and when do you remember first being like, yeah, that's what I want to do?
So I went to Buenos Aires. I was going to go to law school.
This after college?
Yeah, and it's a long story. I basically
Williams College.
I went to Williams
What
College.
is that?
It's a small liberal arts college in Massachusetts.
Okay.
If anybody knows it. What? No, most people have never heard of it.
Right.
But it's like it's a great school. It's good.
Yeah. And it's just like the home of all these wonderful universities and everything. Like
Right.
that.
And it was also the place where I decided that I would never spend a winter in a northern state again. And so consequently, the past 25 years have been in the Southern Hemisphere or Tel Aviv or Miami or LA.
New Jersey native.
New Jersey native,
Okay,
but
okay.
have not spent another winter back in
Go
the
on.
Northeast. Basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I was like, okay, I'll go to law school, political science.
Okay. Good, broad, like smart sounding kind of major. That you're like, I can do whatever I want to do. It's
I have no idea.
right, same. I was sociology, by the way, which is even more.
That's totally.
I did like.
That's for the kids who really had no idea. They're like, I'll just study how people think and are.
I didn't even know what sociology was when I went to. I don't even know if I had heard that like term going into college. But yeah, I majored in it. So anyway, go on. Yeah, continue. So poli-sci Williams, you're like, how did you get into journalism?
So to make a long story short, so I started to travel. I had an ex-girlfriend from college who was from Argentina. And she's like, you have to go visit my family and stay with them. Even though we were not together, we were still friends and close. And so I went there, and then within a couple of days, I met this amazing porteña and in Buenos Aires, and I fell in love. And I'm like, okay, I stay here. And then she worked at a restaurant called Big Mama's. Okay. And at the time
in Buenos Aires.
And that's where I met. I was like sitting there translating the Buenos Aires Herald because it had a Spanish editorial and an English language editorial. And I was sort of comparing them to bone up on my Spanish. She introduced herself, and then like we hit it off, and it was love at first sight.
Wow.
This restaurant, crime was insane in Buenos Aires at this time.
Right.
You had to go to dinner with cash because you had to prepare and anticipate to be robbed at gunpoint. And if you didn't have cash on hand to give the robbers, you would be pistol whipped or shot. This is like, and we actually went out one night and I didn't have cash, and she slipped me cash under the table so that I could hand it to the robbers who robbed us that night with a Smith & Wesson 38. Anyway, she had a guy who kept robbing the store 13 times. His name was Federico. With a syringe, with a gun, with a knife, with like the finger in the shirt type of thing. And they're like, just hand him cash. And that's like, so I ended up, that was my first published article ever, was about Delfina's robber, Federico, at Big Mama's restaurant in Buenos Aires. And I pitched it to the Buenos Aires Herald, and they're like, yeah.
English or Spanish?
English, only English. And I got paid $40. I'm like, yeah, somebody paid me to write a news article. Holy shit.
Okay.
And that was it. And then I'm like, this is awesome. And then I just started writing for the Buenos Aires Herald as much as I could. And like, so I could make some money while living with her. And I ended up staying for 6 months and like going all around the region.
Okay.
And then I basically took 2 duffel bags and landed I was still with this woman, but I was like, I'm into journalism. The Intifada, which was the second Palestinian uprising in Israel and the Palestinian territories, was erupting in early 2000.
And you're like, that's where I want to go. I want to be there.
Yeah.
And just to put this in perspective, by the way, I fancy myself a journalist, at least in a previous life.
Pre-reporter
Daily
background.
Bruin, LA Times.
Yeah, baby.
But I was offered a free trip to Israel. There's a thing called Birthright Israel that they entitle to all Jewish people, where they send you for like 2 weeks. They pay for the flight. They pay for basically everything. And they want you to fall in love with the country and like, I guess, patriate to Israel at some point. I was like, hell no, I'm not going to Israel. I don't want to be caught up in that.
What year was this?
This was 99 to 2.
Oh.
I got offered. I think you go till you're 25.
Yeah.
Like I first crossed my radar like 98. And all my friends were going, they were coming back and they were like, oh, I love Israel. And blah, this is amazing. You got to go. And I was like, I don't want to be caught up in any of that stuff. And you packed your bags and you're like, yo, I got to be in the middle of this while things are going down.
Yeah. I mean, it was the kind of thing where I would go for a run. I lived in Tel Aviv and I'd go for a run. And anytime you were jogging by a bus, you had to anticipate that it might explode. And the West Bank was being, Jenin was leveled by the idea.
This is all I envisioned.
But it was exactly. What's ironic is that it seemed so dangerous and scary at the time.
Yeah.
Right? And there were many
2001, you said, by the way.
Yeah. So I landed there in 2001. It began in September 2000. So I was there like 6 months late.
Okay.
But it was the peak. And I remember at one point, I was writing for the Jerusalem Post, which was a different newspaper.
How'd you get this job, by the way? Was it because of your samples from Saudis?
Yeah. I mean, and I traveled in Africa too afterwards, freelancing for like 7-8 months. Anyway, if you're willing to work like a dog, people will take you. Absolutely. At least back then. Yeah. So I actually did 5 articles in one day for the Post, like driving around the West Bank and Israel and just like going from attack to attack to attack. Yeah. And like if you have a tremendous amount of energy, or at least that's how it used to be, you can go places.
I think that's
and I did. And so I was just blessed with, a lot of energy, not a lot of talent or technique at that point. But I just would work.
Curiosity and passion.
Exactly.
Can pay the bills to a certain extent.
And so I got very lucky. I was very fortunate. And they gave me amazing opportunities.
How long were you in Israel?
Until 2008.
So you were there. I got to ask this. How was 9/11 for you being in Israel?
It was weird because, I grew up in New Jersey. Yeah. In northern New Jersey, really not far from the city that, we were a suburb of New York. So it felt as a young journalist who, all you care about is being in the thick of it. It felt like, well, the biggest thing that has ever happened in the world just happened in the place where I used to live and now I'm not there. But the ripple effects, I think, were felt obviously throughout the region. And then nobody anticipated the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, which ended up being some of my mainstays as well. So I traveled to Iraq many times, and Afghanistan, and Syria, Lebanon, and all these places.
Perfect segue. And again, the difference between me staying home because I didn't want to be in a coffee shop or a bus where potentially something would happen versus Matt literally going to the heart of the conflict. So you go from Israel and at a certain point in Iraq and Afghanistan and doing the hardcore, real journalism and reporting. What was that like? Give me some takeaways from that and how that transpired.
Which part?
All of it, any of it. Because again, look, covering a story for me, I'll never forget. There was a running back for you. This one was with the Daily Bread. The first breaking news story I call. He got in a fight off campus and we had to stop the presses because the star running back got in a fight and that was the rush that I got. That I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the biggest story at UCLA the next day, blah, blah, blah. But you're in war zones where real things are happening and even flying in there could be dangerous or worse. So just give me the whole package on that mentality of attacking that. Is it just chasing the story? I want to be there. I want to present this. What is that?
I wanted to be a witness to history. There were 2 things that were really the driving forces early on in my career. One is, so I love to travel. And that's, I'm like, okay, so there's a job where people will pay you to travel and then tell the stories about the places you've been and the things you've seen. Yeah. And then from a very young age, I was interested in history and geography. Right. And so I remember, I don't know how graphic we can get, but I would spend a long time sitting on the toilet reading the atlas.
Yeah.
Those big atlases, and I just haven't.
To this day, the toilet is some of the most productive reading.
The best.
I'll just be honest.
I mean, it's the only place where we actually have quiet.
Of course.
Except the kids are like.
If you have kids, you know exactly.
When are you going to be done?
Right. Go on.
It's only incidental that they sound like my mother.
And by the way, my dogs have learned to scratch on the door.
Worst.
And I'm like, come on.
There's no peace with dogs in the house.
Okay. So go on. Sorry. Yeah. So you're reading the atlas when you were a kid and you were
right. So I love this stuff. Yeah. I was just I was interested in being abroad and then interested in witnessing history. And then it also became, seeing these people and what's happening to their lives. And then you feel it personally, and you want to be able to convey these stories to people who can't be there. So like the guiding light of my career from then ended up being trying to tell the stories of people who don't have a platform to tell the stories. And bringing people from LA, from New York, from wherever we are in the US to these places where they wouldn't be able to be afforded a chance to be and to experience what is actually happening on the ground. Yeah. And so I've never done politics. I've almost always done this sort of experiential reporting.
But it's all politics, by the way. For the record, it is all politics.
I haven't done Washington, D.C.
politics. Okay. Go on.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It is all politics. But I've avoided D.C. politics. So, it's been about being on the ground, transmitting the things that I'm seeing and feeling and hearing and the stories that I'm getting to the public at large, wherever they may be.
Do you get a rush? What is it for you?
Yeah, I still get a rush. I mean, it's
awesome, right?
I mean, it depends.
Come on.
There is a good friend of mine, Ethan Cross, who's also in my book. He's a psychology professor at UMich, and he has a colleague who talks about awe and negative awe. Yeah. And so one of the things, if you've ever been to like a gorgeous vista, right, the Grand Canyon, you experience awe, right, and there is a whole chemical process that happens in your body, the release of serotonin, endorphins, all sorts of things that happen when you see this, and the same thing happens with negative awe. But it also adds humility and proportion, and you realize that the world is so much bigger than you. And there's so much more going on. So it's a very complex set of feelings that I personally get, but it also feels like there's a mission, right? That you feel like, when we crossed the border from Poland to Ukraine, when the war was breaking out, and I saw, nobody knew about this at the time. Suddenly we saw a sea of humanity on the Ukrainian side, thousands and thousands of people literally pushing up against the border, and the Polish guards are like, back, they're on the gates. People were freaking out. And we saw these goodbyes between men who are my age saying goodbyes to their wives and their kids, knowing that they're going to have to go to war and their families are going to cross to safety to Europe and Poland. And, telling these stories and being like the first to see it, it's like, whoa, the emotional intensity of some of this is a very powerful thing.
Negative awe. I've never heard that concept. And it's something that, again, on a much smaller and less significant scale, like for me, I've always loved the story, right? Like whatever the story is, when something breaks, positive or negative, for me, just as a bystander, there is a rush where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. I can't pull myself away from this. And then me, not reporting on that scale, but texting my friend, something like that, where it's like, even if it's kind of negative news or something like that, where you're like, holy shit, like I'm witnessing from afar history, but I never really realized that concept. But I have wondered psychologically why I'm stimulated by that. And not, again, I don't love it. I'm not like, oh, this is so great. But like the story is something that's so significant that it'll take over my life to a certain extent at that point, even if I'm not directly involved. So this concept I've never heard of, and that's...
First, I think we should never disparage or dismiss any kind of journalism. Right. When people are telling stories, whatever it is, and they're being consumed, whether it's about the running back who got into a fight and he's the star and that changes the entire trajectory of this, championship-bound team, like for that community, that's a big story. So I'm a huge proponent of any kind of journalism. Right. I think that there are some natural pressures that humans need. I need to work.
Right.
I like working. I have always been someone who thrives when he's busy and working, and we know it, right?
Productive, absolutely.
You need to be productive. And I think we also, even though we don't like to admit it and we're scared of it and we're told, oh, pressure is bad, we like intensity. We like pressure.
Have to feed off of it.
Because we are human animals, and we are still very, very new to this world where we have these modern machines that facilitate so many easy things in our lives, but we're still basically like knuckle-dragging people who lived in caves, like genetically, we are still like that. Yeah. And we forget that evolutionarily, we're much more similar to cave people than we are to anything else. And so we have these needs, work, pressure, intensity that we became accustomed to for tens of thousands of generations.
Where does the reporting part come into that, though?
Oh,
into those needs, yeah.
That's like, we are the emissaries who are running out in front of the cave troop to go find the mammoth herd. We're like, oh, thunk, mammoth herd over there. I just saw it. You follow me. I'm telling you where the... Sorry, this is going to go viral with me, thunk. It's really embarrassing. I'll tame it. But, basically there are all sorts of people who had all these different roles in these primitive societies.
Interesting.
And, I believe that I was the kind of guy who would, have gone out, trotted in front of people and been like, that's where the herd is. Or maybe I would have tasted that mushroom and, is it delicious or poisonous?
Right.
Sometimes it didn't end well. But society needs those people.
I had a boss, one of my earliest, like, quote unquote, private sector bosses was like, you're an information station where you love getting information and then disseminating that information. And that's always stuck with me because, significant, insignificant, that's what I do. And that's part of it. Talk to me again, and I don't want to harp on this too much because I want to get back to Devil in the Desert, but Iraq and Afghanistan, were there harrowing moments? Was there any time or any story where you're like, holy shit, this is real? Like, I mean, it's all real, but anything that stands out?
What's funny? People always ask, like, what's the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to you? And I say, driving to work. And so the most dangerous thing that you can imagine is driving home or driving to work in a war zone. So we were leaving Iraq, leaving Kirkuk in 2005. It was just after the elections there. Yeah. And I was in a small BMW with this Kurdish driver and another buddy of mine who was working for Vice TV at the time. And I was still freelancing. And so, we were, in a shoestring budget, but this guy, Kakdana was the name of the driver. Okay. I was kind of nodding off in the back seat. My buddy's in the front seat. And suddenly I hear, oh shit. And I open my eyes and I see a Mack truck directly in front of us. We were driving on a 2-lane road and people drive like absolute suicidal maniacs there.
Right.
And the guy had veered out of the lane into our lane and it was almost a head-on collision. Our guy started driving off the road, but basically the truck hit us and the car flew 50 yards off the road, spun, was completely crushed. I was completely knocked out. The driver was mangled. My buddy was, I don't know if he lost consciousness. Jaron. Anyway, I came to and I'm bleeding. I have glass. There's glass everywhere. And we're on the side of the road in Al-Qaeda controlled territory where the insurgents were very, very strong. And luckily, so within minutes, there are hundreds of people because they don't know at first who we are. And then they see who we are. There's obviously foreigners and there weren't any foreigners there. And luckily a police car comes and he's like, you guys have to get out of here now. So he could have ratted us out, but he saved our lives. And so someone gave me a crowbar and I crowbar the trunk of the car to get our packs, which had exploded from the impact. We had
what packs? Yeah.
Our North Face backpacks.
Okay.
So the force of the impact literally detonating the bag. So we're carrying our stuff. The guy gives us a ride. The cop gives us a ride to the next town, but that's it. And he says, you can get a car from there. And we're going to the airport in Kurdish-controlled Kurdistan in Erbil, which was safe. And we were I was late for my flight. We were driving directly there. The guy was going to stay. And I arrive at the airport and they were I think they'd even closed the gate. And I'm carrying my stuff. There is glass all in my hair. I have blood down my face. And I'm like, I have to get on this plane. And they're like, okay. I've never said that. No, and that never happens. They close the door and they let you on. So I get on the plane and I flew to Jordan. I had a car in Jordan and I drove across the border. I had a driver take me across the border. Then I drove my car to Jerusalem. And the whole time I was thinking, I just need to get home to my soon-to-be wife. And then I arrived 12 hours later with glass in my hair, the blood still dry. I was just determined to get home. But that was so it's funny, people do get hurt in horrific ways from blasts and shootings and bombings. But the way most journalists die is from road accidents.
Oh man.
So like,
so that's
and like, driving to work for GMA, like covering the fires, in the dark, through the smoke at 1:30 in the morning, like that's all. It's crazy, like what actual risks are. ABC, it's okay. We have it all under control. Don't worry. I say this all the time. It's my mantra. That's why I drive so safely and cautiously.
Okay. So, wow. Holy cow. All right. So let's take this. That's incredible, by the way.
I also keep pieces of shrapnel from the October 7th attack. So I was in Israel. I managed to get to Israel the day after October 7th from LA, which is a great story. That'll be the next podcast. And so we were just like it was like there were constant rockets.
Wait, you heard this? I got to know though. You heard the attacks. And I remember we were celebrating my wife's mom's 75th anniversary in Temecula, by the way. And we heard about the attacks. And honestly, I made some kind of off the cuff, insensitive, like, oh, when aren't there attacks? And honestly, these were obviously different. And, it captivated and you were like, holy shit, attacks in Israel. I got to go. ABC sends you. They're like, go get on the boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's the short version.
Holy shit. Okay, go from there. Yeah.
Anyway, so like there were just, we were under a constant barrage. And this is before Israel launched the invasion. So this had just happened, and Hamas still basically had the advantage and still had hundreds of fighters inside Israel proper. Israel did not, people don't know that Israel did not have full control over the southern part of its country and the Gaza border for multiple days. Okay. Like we saw in those initial days, we saw a tank drive after militants and ended up crushing them just on a highway in Israel. Like it was totally helter-skelter. We didn't see the tank run them over.
Yeah.
We saw the tank as it was driving to run them over, and we heard the gunfire from like very near. Anyway, like it was really, really touch and go. Anyway, so I keep a piece of shrapnel that almost took us out.
Wait, do you have a collection of
there's only so much
near-death experience?
I mean, I do. There was a bullet that I kept from Afghanistan that almost took off my foot.
Come on.
And then I lost it. Yeah, because it's small. But it basically splattered. It was into the ground and was right near my foot and just becomes...
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, I mean, for the most part, like every other job, we're not always risking life and limb.
Right.
There are times, and you have to meter that. Right? You don't always want to be at risk of death, because it's not sustainable for you or your team.
Right.
And that's not always what the story's about. Like it's also about the slower moving catastrophes, the starvation, the hunger, the deprivation, other things.
Man, so going from that, Israel, Afghanistan, Iraq, perhaps your biggest most acclaimed work was a children's program.
I'm very proud of it, but I don't know if it's okay.
Right, sea rescue, right?
Yeah.
Is that how did that?
We're going on a sea rescue.
Midst of all the rest of this, your literal life and death daily occupation. How did that come about?
There's a funny story about that. So it was a great show. And we won an Emmy for Outstanding Children's Program. And I was very proud of it. And it was a respite from everything. And I think ABC's like, somebody reached this company. They're like, who looks good in a wetsuit?
Okay.
And they're like, oh, give it to Gutman. It's not because I had any talent. They're like, oh, give it to Gutman.
Right.
And it was just great. But I was always into the ocean. I was into adventure and animals. So it was a perfect fit. And I loved doing the show. And we did some great work. It was also cool to finally have a show that my kids could watch.
Right.
So that was fun. So funny story.
Yeah.
I was held captive in Venezuela by the secret police. And it was a really, really miserable, and I laugh about it now.
Already funny.
Yeah, it was fun. But it was a miserable experience. And they accused me of being a spy without merit. And they were holding me and they said, we think you're CIA. And I'm like, listen. And we're having this conversation and I'm like in broken Spanish. I'm like, I am not CIA.
Yeah.
Look, you see my Google page.
Right.
Like I have a show called Sea Rescue.
Check the resume.
And like, I talk about sea lions, Leon de Mar. I didn't know, Lion of the Sea. I didn't know. I'm like, and these guys were like, okay, he's not CIA.
Right.
No self-respecting CIA person would ever humiliate themselves out the sea lion. So that's my...
Wait, why were you held captive though? What story were you covering, by the way?
We were covering the hunger in general and the kleptocracy in Venezuela, the government was taking all the money, and all the resources, including all the basic supplies at hospitals. We were in this neonatal ward in a city outside, about 3 hours outside of Caracas, and basically in Venezuela, and I think still to this day, if you need surgery, and it's a public hospital, you bring your own sutures, your own sewing equipment, all the equipment a doctor would need, including a gown and bedding.
Yeah.
And so people were like dying, and these children were starving, and they were susceptible to all these diseases that are so easily treated in the U.S. And so that was what the story was about. We were filming in the hospital, and government found out, and basically...
Wow. How long were you captive?
5 days.
What kind of captivity?
We were at a secret black site base for the first 4 days. There were 2 people who were released a bit sooner. And then taken to Caracas the next day. And
did they feed you? Did they beat you?
They ended up feeding us. I was never beaten, but I was sitting right next to the dungeon where they had people basically cheek to jowl in something that was about 3 feet wide that went deep. It was
cuffed.
No, only initially. I was cuffed at times, but I was never physically mistreated.
Okay.
Mostly just scared. Wow. And not allowed to move. We were supposed to sit in these seats the whole time.
Oh man. Sleep? So, how was the sleep?
Well, the floor is fine.
All right.
Okay. I was never physically mistreated. It's just very, 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 very scary. Because, my fixer was like, listen, you're going to be okay. They may only keep you for a year or 2, but I might be here the rest of my life. I'm like, a year or 2? I was
like, nothing wrong with that.
I had a 2-year-old at home. It was not a comfortable situation.
Man, they strip you down or anything, take your things away.
They took all of our things away.
Yeah.
It was not comfortable.
Okay.
All right. Being in the,
I don't want to gloss over this, but I really do want to get to Devil in the Desert. But talk about Boys in the Cave in Thailand for a little bit, because that was important. That's
finally a good story,
that's
right?
That's a book, right?
I wrote a book called The Boys in the Cave.
Also accomplished author, by the way, amongst all these other incredible accomplishments. But yeah, go on.
So I was actually on vacation in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
When I get a call, and those kids that everybody thought were dead in the cave, they're actually alive. And this group...
Give us the background on the cave situation, by the way, because the only big thing I remember at the time was Elon Musk, before he was crazy Elon Musk, I'm going to go... I mean, well, we didn't know.
Elon, don't come after me. I'm saying you were the same, Elon.
But I remember he was like, I'm going to go save everybody.
Yes.
I am the solution, and blah, blah, blah. So that was the big headline for me, because it was but what was the actual situation of what was going on there?
The situation was that these 12 boys and their coach went into a cave.
Right.
That is like a rite of passage for people. And it's this super deep, incredible cave with multiple chambers that goes back miles into this mountain in northern Thailand. Really a spectacular place. And so this was just a fun outing that the coach was giving the kids after, they were like tweens, and some were early teenagers, after their soccer game. And it had been raining a lot.
Ugh.
And they went all the way in, and when they tried to come back out, the path was blocked by water. They were flooded in. And it kept getting pushed farther and farther back. Everybody was like, well, we can't get to them. Everybody tried. The Thai Navy SEALs went in. And basically, it kept expanding from this local effort to rescue the kids to a national effort to the Thai Navy SEALs coming in to the entire world coming together to try to find a way to get these kids out of this mountain.
Right.
And one of the incredible things about where they were, if they had been on the far side of the moon, it would have been easier to contact them or to create some sort of connection. There is literally nothing, not sonar, nothing can penetrate this far inside of a mountain. So they might as well have been in an entirely different universe. So the only way that they could be gotten to is if somebody figured out a way to swim to them. And so caving is a pretty niche thing.
Sure.
Diving is pretty niche, relatively. Cave diving is really niche. And cave dive rescue is the super niche of the niche, because not very many people do it. So there are these 2 guys who are the best in the world, and they're essentially flown out to this cave, and they spend a couple of days.
Do you remember from where, by the way?
They're British.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
John Valanthan and Jim Stanton.
Okay.
And they're kind of the guys who wear, back before it was cool to wear sandals with socks. Now I know everybody's doing it.
Right.
I'm learning this trend. that they were like, white socks with black sandals or vice versa.
Okay.
One of them walked around with something called no, I'm not going to say it. He had a flotation device, which in his very Britishism, he called a cockwomble.
Okay.
Which is basically, it's so niche that nobody developed some of the equipment these guys needed. So they developed their own equipment. It was basically a motorcycle tire that he developed into a flotation device.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway, these guys end up swimming farther than anybody thought possible. They managed to get to the depths of the cave, and then 3.5 hours in of the most torturous swim they've ever done in their decades doing cave diving, they come out, they surface in the water, and they're like, oh. So Jim says to John, he's like, do you smell that? Yeah, it smells like death. And so they thought they found the boys.
Oh no.
Because they smelled what smelled like death, which is a foul, foul stench. And they keep getting closer as they're drifting. And then they're like, they hear voices. And then there's this famous video that they caught on their GoPro camera. One of the children comes to like the sandbank and I think it was Jim asks, he's like, how many are you? And he's like, 13. The kid says 13. He's like, 13? All 13? And that's where this famous all 13 comes from. They had all survived.
Yeah.
I think it was for almost 2 weeks on water. They were very, very weak.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 10 days. Very weak. But their coach had basically helped them stay alive and helped them stay together. And so the next question was how to get them out. And that's like what most of the book is about, is this incredible multinational effort, partly spearheaded by and planned by the U.S. Air Force, which people don't know, the 353rd Special Wing of the Air Force, like the Special Forces of the Air Force, who helped plan this thing and getting these kids out, which should never have happened. And it was so touch and go that the U.S. Air Force major who was heading up the operation of the planning, at least, told the Thai Interior Minister and later the Prime Minister, he's like, listen, I don't know if we can get any of them out. And he's like, well, the ministers were like, well, what would you consider a success? And Major Hodges was like, well, I think if we get one child back to his family, that would be a success. And they're like, one child? We wanted to get everybody out. Yeah. He's like, we don't think we can do it. We're not sure. So they estimated that between about 3/4 of the kids would die. So maybe they could get out 4 or 5 alive.
Right. At best.
At best. And if anybody reads it, anyway, they do. It's incredible.
And they saved them all.
They saved them all.
Wow.
And then as the Thai Navy SEALs who had been sent at the very end to give them food and to help them out, as they came out of the cave, it had been raining, the whole cave flooded entirely. So those kids would have died literally within hours of the last ones being extricated.
Boys in the Cave.
Incredible story.
Boys in the Cave is the name of the book.
Boys in the Cave.
Check that out. All right. So that lays the groundwork for you're doing reporting, which is different.
That's good news, by the way. Great, good news story.
News, by the way.
It's not all doom and gloom.
And adjacent to and kind of leads into, so with Devil in the Desert, you had been following that story. You had seen that story. How did that turn into a podcast? How did that catch your imagination and to do the incredible reporting that you did in those 6 episodes telling that story?
So I've been on this story. I've known about the story for 12 years.
Yeah.
No, 11 years. I had started working on the story in 2016 when Jose Nayeri broke out of the Orange County jail. So what you have in Devil in the Desert is this horrific mutilation and crime and this caper. And then this guy, again, somehow slipping off to Iran. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. You got it down. I'm telling you, if you're into true crime or even just good storytelling, it's freaking incredible. But after they cut off the dude's penis, which we discussed, there were certain breaks in the case, certain like lucky, just crazy, things that happened where they were able to pinpoint suspects and they were able to do some great detective work. And they ended up pretty much figuring out who had committed this heinous crime, right? So at that point, once they had pinpointed the perpetrators, the mastermind escaped to his homeland of Iran, right? And at that, again, non-extradition country. So what are you going to do there to kind of pursue that lead from there? So go on. So you kind of get involved. You're following it. Where did that go from there?
So after the spoiler alert, they create this honey trap this man, Hussein Ayer, is married to a woman who is just about to take the bar.
Right.
And she was implicated in his crimes. And they basically they do a proffer. They're like, listen, you tell us everything you know and maybe we won't throw the book at you. And then if you cooperate with us more, we'll be more lenient.
Yeah.
And eventually she ends up in on this. And for 6 months, she's on the phone with him. Hey, baby. She had divorced him already.
Right.
He was horrific to her. And she coaxes him to do a family trip. He was, I think they weren't yet divorced. She coaxes him to meet her and his sister in Spain.
Yeah.
But the flight,
sister not in on it, right?
Sister not in on it. But his flight was going to land in Prague. And the Czech Republic has really good extradition deals with the United States. They're very cooperative.
Right.
And so he happens to land there, and instead of moving on to the next flight and to see his wife and collect, $10,000 in cash or $20,000 in cash and, have a loving tryst with her, he's met by some burly Czech border guards who are like, come with us.
Yeah.
And that begins the downfall for him. Eventually he's brought back to the U.S., and he sets up shop at the Orange County Jail.
And you feel like justice is being served at this point. You're like, all right, they got him.
They got the guy.
And again, you got it in episode 2. It's crazy how this comes together because you're like, dude, they're never going to figure this out. He was I don't want to use the word mastermind. I don't want to give him that much credit, but he was definitely a sociopath and a smart enough guy to like cover his tracks. And it was a very difficult case until they got these amazing breaks that sort of made it happen. And again, great detective work and police work. So they finally catch him. You're like, great. He's in jail. He's in Orange County. They're going to put him on trial. They're going to lock him up.
What could go wrong now?
Right. Correct.
The guy masterminds a jailbreak. And not only does he do that, and not only is he able to get the money from inside prison by doing all sorts of things, which can't be named right now, but he basically crowdfunds his prison break, and then he films it.
Yeah,
it's all on tape. And if you
again, some sociopath stuff, right? Like you have to
set to Mission Impossible,
right?
Oh, I mean, like you can't make it up. But the guy was good at what he did. Yeah, he managed to not break out, but break up. So they tunneled their way into
Shawshank Redemption,
total Shawshank Redemption, into the utility line of this building through basically what was the plumbing system.
Right.
And instead of going out, they go up to the roof of the Orange County Jail.
Where they're not surveilling. It's like the only place that they weren't surveilling. Because you break out, you're going to break out on the ground floor. Yeah.
And they spend so much time there that he starts like watching the fireworks from Disneyland across the way in Anaheim. Like they're actually like up there. It's completely theirs. They're there for days.
Right.
Just enjoying the view. Finally, there's barbed wire, but they rappel down the other side. They get into a cab, and there's this, and no one in the jail has any idea for like 16 hours.
Right.
So 16 hours on a jailbreak is insane.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, oh, this guy's out of the country. And one of the main
figure you went to Mexico, right? You're Orange County, you're right next to the border, if you will.
2 hours?
Yeah.
Like
right. Correct.
And then from Mexico, there is an Iranian embassy or even a consulate in Tijuana.
Right.
But they have people there, and he could have been off to Iran.
Correct.
Before they even knew it. That's not exactly what happens. One of the main great lines from the prosecutor who was alerted as soon as this happened, but whatever, when they found out 16, 20 hours later, she's like, oh my God, you let Hannibal Lecter go.
So think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, again, a guy who does this kind of mutilation and that kind of...
And he left. He somehow got the ESL teacher of the jail. He coerced her to be his something. They exchanged love letters maybe. And she printed out for him a bunch of images, maps of the area off of Google, but also 2 color photographs of the 2 prosecutors who were going to prosecute his case, Matt Murphy and Heather Brown. And he had them waiting on his bed for when prison guards found that he was missing.
Yeah.
Talk about chilling.
Yeah. And if you were in those shoes, you're target 1 and 1A right there. You're like, that's who he's coming for first.
And next is his wife, Courtney, now ex-wife.
Who we figured out, who at that point, I mean,
what entrapped?
What is it, discovery that
exactly.
You get to know that you're like, holy shit, that was a trap the whole time. So, I mean, that story, listen, so every single episode of this Devil in the Desert, there's something where you're like, holy shit, this is incredible. How does this happen? The twists and turns, all guided by this storytelling of a man who has seen everything, witnessed everything, and is able to kind of just convey that in this cool, collected manner, right? Of a story that's really just about chaos and about something that's absolutely unbelievable and a compelling true crime narrative.
We have an incredible team at ABC Audio.
Yeah.
Seriously, they produced this, and the music that they did by Evan Viola and the production by Madeline Wood and Susie Liu and all these people who worked on this was masterful. And so I benefited from real talent, storytelling. And we've done this for 2020. This was a different take. And I've been pushing for something like this for years because I'm like, this is one of the craziest stories that anyone has ever heard.
Yeah.
So it's on Hulu, but now it's also a podcast. And it was so much fun to produce with this team. Like, it's really cool when you're telling this story and you're doing these table reads and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but you're like, you can't believe the thing that you're reading, even though you know the story, you're remembering it. And you're like, I can't believe that just happened.
No, it's crazy. And it's chilling and shocking and thrilling. And did you meet Mary and Michael?
Yes. I didn't meet Michael. I never met Michael. He never did an interview.
I
interviewed Mary at length. And obviously,
Michael,
Jose Nayeri and I had a long relationship for years.
That's right. You had the interview with Jose Nayeri.
The interview,
right?
I
which
on
again,
the phone many times.
Talk about a sociopath. Like, you hear him, you like it's that, and that's where the Hannibal Lecter comes from, because he was pretty cool and collected himself. I mean, he thought he was cool and collected. Let's just say that. But you were able to get that interview with him before everything really broke, which is pretty incredible in itself. What was that like?
I mean, the guy's
a charmer.
He's kind of magnetic.
Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah.
He can be extremely likable when he wants to be.
Yeah.
And he and I spent hours.
You wrote letters.
We wrote letters. We spent hours on the phone. He wrote me I think dozens and dozens of pages of letters. And his handwriting is so perfect that you think it's printed. Especially me, because my handwriting is a disaster.
Same.
But his is perfect. It's very off-putting and eerie. But yeah, he is a master at manipulation. And I got to say, there are times where I found myself talking to him. I'm like, maybe he's got a point. And then I'm like, no.
Like, he's a pretty good leader.
But that's what someone like that does. They will twist your thoughts until you have to shake it off and be like, no. That makes no sense. That defies logic and reason. But he's a master manipulator. There are parts of his story that are sad. Something happened to this guy along the way. Right. And I don't know if it's TBI or something, but he changed and he's a different person. And he ended up doing horrific things to a lot of people and terrorizing Southern California for a long time. And people don't know, or people don't remember, but he was on the lam for a week.
Yeah.
These guys, people didn't know where they were. He disappeared with two other people.
And the cab driver.
They kidnapped. But nobody knew where they were. Nobody knew where they would land. And nobody had any idea what they were capable of.
Yeah, and talk about armed and dangerous, or at least absolutely dangerous. Do you have plans for another podcast of this nature?
We do. Can't talk about it right now, though.
And the Alaska
But it's also based on...
By the way, the Alaska one, that's the teaser right now. If I can download that. That's not you.
That's not me.
That is
Chris
ABC,
Connolly.
right?
That's ABC.
Okay, but you're coming up. There's going to be another Mag.
We're working on something.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another Southern California story.
Let's go. We're going to have him back after, or maybe before that one, by the way.
This one actually also has a bit of Mojave in it. And one of the craziest things that one of the San Diego sheriff's deputies has this saying. He's like, the desert is so filled with bodies that at Judgment Day, there'll be standing room only out there.
Oh, dude, because you got LA and Vegas, and that's where.
Yeah.
Whew.
So, yeah.
Okay. Last thing, and I want to end this on a lighter note. You are an LA person, which is
a transplant. Now I am.
But you're an LA resident. Let's call it that way.
Definitely.
Give me your favorite thing, your least favorite thing about LA.
Oh, the least favorite is so cliche. It's just traffic.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing
Yeah.
is driving anywhere at like 1 a.m. when we're going to GMA. Because when there is no traffic, there is no better place to get from point A to point B.
So awesome.
The roads are actually great.
Yeah.
There are just too many cars on them.
True. Okay. And then what do you do? If you have one thing to do, you can have a weekend off somehow, which I doubt you.
Oh,
what are your favorite things to do in LA?
I mean, I think LA is really, it's a beautiful place. And so I'll do the cliche thing there
That's
too.
all right.
I like Point Doom.
Ooh, that's cool.
It's like
of course.
beautiful. And I love running in the Santa Monicas with my dogs.
You would be a runner. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I could have, yeah.
And you say cliche, but I want to say this because be a tourist in your own town.
Yes.
For me, one of the best things I ever did that I never did for 40 plus years was go see the Hollywood sign up close. And the things like that, as cliche as that sounds, like do the beaches, do the Hollywood sign, go to the Sunset Strip, like LA, all those things became cliches because they are so incredible. And what's also incredible is your storytelling, your persistence, your passion, your curiosity, your reporting. Matt Gutman, thank you so much for being here. This was incredible. I could have done so much more. Listen, Devil in the Desert. Go now. Apple, Spotify, whatever your podcast platform is. The 6 episodes, I think it's like 240 minutes, maybe less. I listen
40 minutes an episode or less.
I listen on 1.5 just for the record.
Ooh.
Yeah, but
that's
listen to
I
it.
talk
It's incredible.
Too slowly.
But catch this man. Tell us where to find you, by the way. What's the best place to follow, watch?
Probably on Instagram if you want me personally.
Yeah.
Obviously,
What's
you
the
download
ad?
podcasts.
What's the handle?
Matt Gutman at ABC.
Okay. Wait.
Actually, Matt Gutman ABC.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
I'm new to this.
Right. But yeah, so thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you. This was a treat. And Devil in the Desert, download, listen, and just be regaled by this awesome storytelling. But thank you so much for being here.
7.
Like, follow, subscribe, and share. All right, LA, it's been a minute.